YN. No, I can't do this, YN thought, her heart racing. I have to get out of here. I can't let myself become a part of this man's life again. Panic rising, she quickly handed the toddler back to Seokjin. She couldn't bring herself to look at Taehyung, so she turned her gaze toward Jungkook instead. YN. I'm sorry, Jungkook. She said, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to remain steady. I can't be his nanny. You'll have to find someone else. YN. The voice belonged to the toddler's father. It was a broken whisper. Taehyung stood there, his eyes already glistening with unshed tears. He took a tentative step toward her, but stopped dead in his tracks when YN instinctively recoiled, taking a sharp step back to keep the distance between them. Without another word, YN turned toward the door. Every instinct told her to run, but she was frozen by a sudden, piercing wail. The little boy's cry echoed through the room, sharp and desperate. It felt like a physical blow to her chest. Her mind screamed at her to leave, to save herself from the past, but her heart stayed her feet. It wasn't because of the man who used to be her world. It was because of the child whose heartbroken sobs seemed to beg her to stay. Gripping the hem of her shirt until her knuckles turned white, YN forced herself to turn around. Her heart shattered at the sight. The little boy was thrashing in his uncle's arms, his tiny hands reaching out toward her, as if pleading with her not to go. In that moment, she felt an inexplicable, powerful connection to him, as if his pain was her own. Wiping a stray tear from her cheek, YN walked back to him. Hey, handsome. Why are you crying again? She murmured softly, gently taking the boy from Seokjin's arms. YN. Taeho doesn't want you to go, Taehyung said, his voice thick with emotion. Please, stay. As if on cue, the boy's sobs intensified, punctuating his father's plea. YN didn't look at Taehyung. She kept her eyes fixed on the child, rubbing soothing circles on his back. Don't cry, she whispered. I'm not going anywhere, it's okay. As YN focused on calming the child, Jungkook and Seokjin stood by in bewildered silence, watching the scene unfold like a drama they hadn't been cast in. Jungkook whispered, leaning towards Seokjin. What is actually going on? They clearly know each other. Clearly, Seokjin muttered back, his eyes darting between Taehyung and YN. Taehyung called her by name before we even had a chance to introduce her. They have a history. Jungkook scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. Ah, right. Good point. Eventually, the toddler's cries faded into soft whimpers, then silence. YN looked down to find that he had fallen fast asleep against her shoulder. So sweet, she thought, a small, involuntary smile tugging at her lips. Seokjin hung. Jungkook Taehyung interrupted quietly. Could you take Taeho up to his room? I need a moment alone with YN. They nodded, carefully transferring the sleeping boy from In's arms before disappearing upstairs. Taehyung stepped closer to her. In his mind, she was still his. The cruel words he had thrown at her 3 years ago had been a lie, a desperate reaction to circumstances beyond his control. He had never truly ended things in his heart. Even now, his feelings for her remained unchanged. But as he reached out, YN stepped back again, her expression turning cold. Taehyung. YN, he breathed, his eyes searching hers. I'm sorry, but I cannot be your son's nanny, YN said firmly, turning to leave. Please find someone else. She only made it a few steps before Taehyung's hand shot out, catching her wrist and pulling her back against his chest. YN gasped as his arms wrapped firmly around her waist. Taehyung. Don't go, he whispered into her hair. YN. What are you doing? Let me go, she cried, struggling against his embrace. Taehyung, Tayo needs you. He pleaded. And so do I, he added silently, tightening his hold. I've been drowning without you. You hid so well that I nearly lost my mind searching. I think God finally took pity on me and brought you back. I told you, I'm not doing it, snapped, still fighting to break free. Find someone else. Taehyung, it's not that simple. You aren't the first person I've hired, but you're the first one he's ever opened up to. He doesn't trust easily. Every other nanny I've tried ended in a disaster of tears and screaming. But with you, he's comfortable. Please, for his sake, stay. YN froze. She needed the money. Her younger brother's tuition was due soon, and it wasn't a small amount. But could she really do this? Could she spend every day in the house of the man who broke her heart and keep it professional? YN took a long, shaky breath. Fine. I'll be his nanny. Now, let go of me. Taehyung exhaled in relief, his face brightening as he instantly released her. YN turned to face him, her gaze icy. But I have conditions, she stated. I will not live here, I'll stay at Jungkook's. My job is strictly to look after your son, nothing more. And from this moment on, we act like strangers. I am here to work, not to revisit the past. Do you understand? Taehyung fell silent, his gaze intense as he memorized every detail of her face. He knew she wasn't ready to forgive him, but he had time now. He would earn her back. Taehyung finally nodded. If that's what you want. But you'll need to be here early. Tayo wakes up at dawn, and the first thing he wants is his milk. Fine, YN replied curtly. The next morning, just as Taehyung had said, YN had to be at the house at the crack of dawn. Taehyung had already given her the passcode so she could let herself in. Once inside, YN found herself in the living room, but there was no sign of him. He's probably getting ready for work, she muttered. She hurried to the kitchen and immediately began preparing a bottle for Tayo. She also made a few sandwiches for Taehyung. Jungkook had mentioned that Taehyung never had time for breakfast because he was too busy looking after his son, so Jungkook had asked her to make sure he ate. As she was busy with the sandwiches, a man walked in. His suit was badly wrinkled, his tie was a mess, and his hair was completely disheveled. Despite the prominent dark circles under his eyes, his striking looks remained perfectly intact. YN looked up, her brow furrowing as she studied her ex-boyfriend. It looks like he didn't sleep at all last night, she thought, watching him grab a drink from the fridge. Taehyung, what time is it? Why isn't she here yet? He muttered, completely unaware that she was there. YN, I'm already here, sir, she said curtly. Startled by her voice, Taehyung turned around slowly. He saw YN busy at the counter, finishing the sandwiches. Since when has she been standing there? He wondered. Taehyung, oh, you're here. He stammered. YN simply nodded in response. Taehyung stood there in silence, his gaze lingering on her. He flashed a meaningful smile. He hadn't slept a wink because he couldn't stop thinking about her. Seeing her right in front of him felt like a dream. He was snapped out of his thoughts when YN suddenly walked toward him, holding Tayo's bottle. YN, where is Tayo's room? Taehyung, Second floor. The last door on the right. YN nodded and started to leave, but stopped herself as if remembering something, then turned back to face him. YN. I made some sandwiches for you. Have some breakfast before you head to the office. And if you have the time, you really should iron your clothes, they're far too wrinkled. Taehyung couldn't help but grin at her concern, even though she had said it with a cold, expressionless face. Noticing his reaction, YN quickly added, "Don't get the wrong idea. Jungkook was the one who told me to make those sandwiches for you. As for the ironing, it was just a suggestion." With that, she walked away. Taehyung's smile widened even further. "I don't care if it was just a suggestion or whatever. The point is, you care about me," he said to himself before taking a seat at the breakfast bar. Taehyung. I'm going to win you back, Choi YN. And then, I'll explain everything that happened in the past. Even if you have no intention of coming back, I'll still do whatever it takes to bring you back into my arms. You belong to me, Choi YN. Taehyung began eating the sandwich YN had made, a lingering smile spreading across his face with every bite. After finishing his breakfast, he said his goodbyes to Taehyung and YN before rushing off to the office. Upon arriving at the office, Taehyung was greeted with nods and sweet smiles from his employees, especially the female staff. Female employee 1. How can he still look that handsome with wrinkled clothes and messy hair? Female employee 2. Right. I still find it hard to believe he already has a child, especially since he looks so young. Female employee 3. Aish, why is he walking so fast? I wanted to stare a bit longer. She sighed, watching Taehyung disappear into the CEO's office. Stop looking at him with those disgusting eyes, a woman snapped coldly. The employees who had been whispering turned around in shock. They were startled to find the CEO of Yeyoung Group standing right behind them. It was Yoon Yojin, Kim Taehyung's ex-wife. Despite their divorce, their two companies remained in partnership, as they hadn't let their personal history break their professional contracts. Employee M. My apologies, ma'am, one of them stammered, bowing her head. Ignoring them, Yojin marched straight into Taehyung's office. Female employee 3. Whispering, it's so obvious she's trying to get close to Mr. Kim again. Employee 5. Definitely. But I'm sure he'd never go back to her, considering how cold and blunt he always is with her. Employee 6. You're right. Besides, rumors say Mr. Kim had a lover before he married the CEO of Yeyoung Group. Apparently, his previous relationship was destroyed because his parents forced him into that arranged marriage. Female employee 2. I heard he tried to refuse, but she used some dirty tricks to make the marriage happen. All employees. What a snake. Inside Taehyung's office. Yojin. Tae. She called out, her voice intentionally soft and sweet. Taehyung only spared her a fleeting glance before returning his focus to the documents on his desk, completely ignoring the woman he considered a snake in human form. Without being asked, Yojin pulled out a chair and sat across from him. Yojin, your appearance is a mess, as usual. How many times do I have to tell you? Just let me take care of Taehyung. Taehyung, smirking, take care of him. He's terrified just looking at you, and you're supposed to be his biological mother. He said with a sharp, cynical tone. Yojin gripped the hem of her dress, trembling with suppressed rage. Taehyung always knew how to corner her. Struggling to keep her emotions in check, she tried to change the subject. Yojin, I thought you'd cancel all your appointments today. Your mother told me she was planning to visit your house this morning to see Tayo. Taehyung's head snapped up. His body went rigid. In a blind panic, he grabbed his phone and called his secretary to cancel his entire schedule for the day. Without another word, he sprinted out of the office, ignoring Yojin's voice calling after him. He threw himself into his car and sped off, his heart hammering against his ribs. He prayed that YN would be okay by the time he got there. Flashbacks of the past flooded his mind. He remembered how cruel his mother had been to YN, and the worry intensified. His heart ached, a suffocating tightness in his chest as he recalled his mother hurling insults and even striking YN right in front of him. Taehyung, I will never let anyone hurt you again, not even my own mother. He growled, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white.
As soon as he arrived, Taehyung parked his car and sprinted inside. When he reached the living room, his heart dropped. His son was wailing at the top of his lungs, and YN stood there with her head down, her body shaking violently. His mother was screaming insults at her, but what made Taehyung's blood boil was the sight of In's flushed, reddened cheek. He knew instantly that his mother had slapped her. Taehyung. Eoma, he roared in fury. Mrs. Kim turned around. Oh, Taehyung ah, I was just about to ask you, why is this wretched woman herein? Taehyung. Get out, he barked, pointing directly at the door. Mrs. Kim gasped in shock. You're shouting at your mother. You're kicking me out because of this pathetic girl. She demanded, her voice rising. She turned to YN with a look of pure malice. You absolute brat, she hissed, reaching out to grab In's hair with a violent yank. Taehyung reacted instantly, roughly prying his mother's hand away from YN. His movement was so forceful that Mrs. Kim lost her balance and fell, her head hitting the edge of the coffee table. YN. Taehyung ah, what are you doing? YN rushed forward to check on her, but Mrs. Kim brushed her hand away aggressively. Mrs. Kim stood up, glaring at her son. You've gone too far, Taehyung. She screamed. Taehyung. No, you've gone too far. You hit her, you insulted her, yet you can't handle being treated the same way. I've been patient enough. I'm done. I will never let you lay a finger on YN again. He spat, his eyes burning with rage. Yoon Yojin, who had followed Taehyung inside, rushed to Mrs. Kim's side. Eomanam, are you all right? She asked, before turning to Taehyung. Have you lost your mind, Kim Taehyung? How could you be so disrespectful to your own mother? Taehyung, how dare you just barge into my home? Have you no sense of boundaries? He glared at Yojin. Yojin fell silent, but Mrs. Kim quickly jumped in. There's nothing wrong with Yojin being here, she is the mother of your child. This woman, on the other hand, is nobody. And yet you chose to push your own mother for the sake of this nobody. She cried, pointing a trembling finger at YN. In's eyes filled with tears. She had never understood why Mrs. Kim harbored such deep hatred for her. Taehyung struggled to keep his composure. Nobody, you say? Fine, let me remind you once and for all. She is my woman. The woman who stood by me years ago, until your selfishness tore us apart. You saw what happened to me. You saw me spiral into depression. I didn't want to live, but YN was the only thing that kept me going. She appeared in my thoughts and my dreams, telling me to stay alive. YN looked up in shock. He was the one who ended things, yet he's the one who suffered the most. What actually happened back then? She wondered. Taehyung. And you talk about being heartless. What's more heartless than you beating and insulting her when she hasn't done a single thing wrong? You hate her just because she comes from a simple family, and you adore Yojin just because of her wealth. You're so blinded by money that you've forgotten where you came from before you married Dad. Mrs. Kim went quiet, as did Yojin. Taehyung, you're a woman and a mother too. Imagine if you had a daughter. How would you feel seeing her get humiliated and hit by someone else? Don't lie and say it wouldn't hurt. You'd be the first person to tear apart anyone who touched her, wouldn't you? Mrs. Kim remained silent, her fists clenched at her sides. Taehyung turned to YN. Take Taeo to his room. YN hesitated, but seeing the intensity in Taehyung's eyes, she quickly picked up the crying toddler and hurried upstairs. Yojin, you shouldn't speak to your mother like that. You need to open your eyes. She only wants what's best for you. Why am I always the villain in your eyes, Taehyung? Ah. She snapped, frustrated. Taehyung, stay out of this. You're nothing to me. His words left Yojin flushed with silent rage. Mrs. Kim, she isn't good for you. Even if you insist on being with her, you will never have my blessing. Taehyung caught the small, smug smirk Yojin tried to hide. Taehyung, I don't need your blessing. Having YN by my side is enough. I don't need anything else. Mrs. Kim, you'll regret this, Taehyung. I am your mother. I gave birth to you. Without my blessing, you will never find happiness. Taehyung, I have God's blessing, and I will be happy. Look at us. He brought her back to me just when I was about to give up searching. See, God is fair, and he clearly approves of us. Yojin, I won't let either of you be happy, Kim Taehyung, she thought, her nails digging into her palms. Mrs. Kim, fine, let me ask you one thing. Who do you choose? That woman, or your mother? Taehyung, Eoma and YN shouldn't even be a choice. But since you're forcing me, I'll answer. I already chose you once, and look where that got us. Do you understand now? Please, just leave, he said, his expression turning ice cold. Mrs. Kim, so you're choosing her? Fine, let's see how long this happiness lasts. Come on, Yojin, she hissed, grabbing Yojin's arm and storming out of the house.